My beloved child, pause for a moment and listen closely. What I am about to share carries the weight of eternity, yet it begins with this single ordinary day before you. There is a gift I placed within you before you took your first breath, a calling woven into the fabric of your soul with threads of gold and purpose. Yet I watch as so many of my children spend their entire lives holding this treasure in their hands, while never truly unwrapping it. Not because they lack desire, not because they lack dreams, but because they have not yet understood that the wrapping paper is called discipline, and without it, even the most precious gift remains sealed, untouched, unseen by the world that desperately needs what only you can give. Do you remember the parable I told about the talents? 3 servants, 3 different responses. 2 invested what they were given, 1 buried his in the ground, paralyzed by fear and excuses. When the master returned, he did not ask for perfection. He asked for faithfulness. He asked what they did with what they had been given. My child, I am not asking you to be brilliant. I am asking you to be faithful. And faithfulness is not a single grand gesture. It is the 1,000 small choices you make when no one is watching, and nothing feels urgent. You have felt it, haven't you? That pull inside you, that whisper in the quiet hours reminding you that you were made for something beyond what you are currently living. You have seen glimpses of who you could become, moments when inspiration struck like lightning, and you felt invincible. You wrote down plans. You set goals. You promised yourself that this time would be different. And yet, as the days turned into weeks, and the weeks melted into months, that fire dimmed. Not because the gift disappeared, but because you have not yet learned that inspiration is the spark, but discipline is the fuel that keeps the flame alive. Think of Joseph in that prison cell, falsely accused, dreams deferred, 13 years of waiting in the dark. But here is what most people miss when they read his story. Joseph did not waste those years drowning in bitterness. He did not spend his days rehearsing his revenge. I watched him serve faithfully right where he was, in the pit, in Potiphar's house. In the prison he could not control his circumstances, but he controlled his character. He could not speed up my timing, but he mastered his discipline. And when his moment came, when Pharaoh needed someone who could be trusted with a kingdom, Joseph was ready. Not because he was lucky, but because he had been faithful in the small, dark, forgotten places where only I was watching. I need you to understand something that many never grasp until they have wasted years chasing feelings instead of building foundations. The gift I gave you is not a trophy to be displayed. It is a seed to be cultivated, and seeds do not grow on excitement alone. They grow in the dark, unseen soil of daily faithfulness. They grow when no one is watching. They grow when you are tired. They grow when the thrill has faded and all that remains is the choice between showing up or shutting down. That choice, my child, is where champions are separated from dreamers. That choice is where discipline becomes your greatest act of worship. There are countless people walking this earth with gifts greater than those who have achieved great things. Gifts of creativity that could change industries. Gifts of wisdom that could heal generations. Gifts of leadership that could transform communities. Yet these gifts remain buried beneath the weight of inconsistency, beneath the excuse of not having enough time, beneath the lie that says you will start tomorrow when you feel more ready. I tell you the truth. Tomorrow is a thief disguised as a friend. Tomorrow has stolen more destinies than any enemy ever could, because tomorrow never comes. There is only today. There is only this moment. There is only the decision you make right now to honor what I have entrusted to you. When you waste the hours I have given you, you are not merely losing time. You are saying no to the purpose I designed you for. Every moment you scroll without intention, every hour you spend in empty distraction, every day you let slip by without moving toward what I called you to do, these are not small things. They are the silent architects of a life filled with regret. I do not say this to condemn you, but to awaken you, for I see the giant that sleeps inside you. I see the impact you were meant to make, and I also see the habits that are quietly chaining that giant to the ground. In Ephesians, I spoke through Paul, saying, "Be very careful how you live, not as unwise, but as wise, making the most of every opportunity because the days are evil." Do you hear that? Making the most, not wasting, not drifting. not letting precious hours leak through your fingers like water. Every day is an opportunity you will never get back. Every morning is a blank page that you alone will fill. And at the end of your life, the question will not be how much you accomplished. It will be what you did with what I gave you. If what I am saying is resonating with you right now, do me a favor. Pause and leave a comment below. Just one word, one phrase. What is the habit you know you need to build? Writing it down is not just for me to see. It is for you to declare. It is for your own soul to witness that this moment mattered, that you heard me, that you are ready to respond. If you are honest with yourself, you already know the areas where you have been inconsistent. You know the routines you started and abandoned. You know the promises you made to yourself that you broke before the week was over. You know the discipline you admire in others, but have not yet built in yourself. And perhaps you have believed that discipline is something you either have or you don't. That some people are just naturally disciplined and others are not. Let me shatter that lie right now. Discipline is not a personality trait you are born with. It is a muscle you build through repetition. It is a skill you develop through practice. It is a garden you tend through daily deliberate choices. Consider Daniel, a young man ripped from his homeland and thrown into a pagan empire. He could have bent, he could have compromised. He could have said just this once. The situation is too hard, but I watched as Daniel resolved in his heart. He made a decision before the pressure came, and then decades later, when his enemies searched for any fault in him, they found nothing. Why? Because his private discipline had become his public character. 3 times a day he prayed to me, not when he felt like it, not when it was convenient, not when his enemies were watching. He prayed because he had built a rhythm that was stronger than his circumstances. That is what I am inviting you into. Not perfection, but rhythm. Not flawless execution, but faithful repetition. Not a life without failure, but a life where you get back up faster each time you fall. You may look at those who have achieved what you dream of and assume they possess some secret advantage, some special grace that makes obedience easy for them. But what you do not see are the mornings they woke up when every part of them wanted to stay in bed. What you do not see are the times they sat down to work when their mind screamed for distraction. What you do not see are the countless small decisions they made when no one was applauding, when no one was noticing, when there was no immediate reward. That is where greatness is forged, not in the spotlight, but in the shadows of ordinary, unglamorous faithfulness. I gave you time not as a burden, but as a canvas, not as a prison, but as a tool. Every sunrise is an invitation. Every hour is a resource. Every minute is a seed you can plant in the soil of your future. But you must choose what you will do with it. You can spend it, or you can invest it. You can let it drift through your fingers like sand, or you can shape it into something that will outlast you. The difference between those who live with purpose and those who live with regret is not talent. It is not opportunity. It is not luck. It is the daily discipline of choosing what matters over what is easy. Moses prayed to me, "Teach us to number our days, that we may gain a heart of wisdom." He understood something that most people spend their whole lives avoiding. Your days are numbered. You do not have infinite time. You do not have endless tomorrows. Every day you delay is a day you can never reclaim. Every hour you waste is an hour you are spending from a limited account I gave you. And when you truly grasp the brevity of life, everything changes. Suddenly that phone scroll feels like theft. Suddenly, that extra hour of laziness feels like betrayal. Suddenly, the choice to show up or shut down becomes a matter of legacy, not convenience. Take a moment and hit the like button if you are feeling this. Not for me, but as a marker for yourself, as a way of saying, I was here, I heard this. I am choosing to remember because sometimes the smallest action in the moment becomes the turning point you look back on years later. I see you struggling with the voice that says you are too far behind. That voice whispers in the spaces between your ambition and your action. It tells you that others have already done what you want to do, that your moment has passed, that it is too late to become who you were meant to be. But I need you to recognize that voice for what it is. It is not truth. It is fear dressed up as reason. It is the enemy of your destiny trying to convince you to settle before you even begin. I have never measured your worth by how far ahead others seem to be. I measure it by whether you are faithful with what I have placed in your hands today. You cannot control where you started. You cannot rewrite the years you feel you wasted, but you can control what you do with the time that remains. And I promise you, if you will give me your mornings, I will multiply your days. If you will give me your focus, I will sharpen your vision. If you will give me your consistency, I will build something through you that will echo into eternity. But it starts with a decision to stop waiting for perfect conditions, a decision to stop making excuses, a decision to stop letting your feelings dictate your actions. When Samuel came to anoint the next king of Israel, he looked at Jesse's sons and saw warriors, strong men, impressive men, men who looked the part. But I saw something different. I saw a shepherd boy in the fields who had been faithful with sheep when no one was watching. David did not become a giant slayer because he woke up brave the day he faced Goliath. He became a giant slayer because he had faced lions and bears in the private wilderness. He had built courage in secret. He had practiced discipline when it did not matter to anyone but me. And when the moment came that would define his legacy, he was ready, not because he got lucky, but because he had been faithful in the small things that prepared him for the big thing. You keep asking me for your big moment, but I am asking you, what are you doing in the wilderness? What are you building in private? What habits are you forming when no one is applauding? The big moment is coming, but the question is, will you be ready when it arrives? Discipline is not about being harsh with yourself. It is not about depriving yourself of rest or joy. It is about aligning your daily actions with the vision I have placed in your heart. It is about building a life where your habits serve your calling instead of sabotaging it. It is about creating rhythms that protect your purpose instead of patterns that drain it. And here is what you must understand. Every time you choose discipline over distraction, you are casting a vote for the person you are becoming. Every time you honor your commitments to yourself, you are building trust with your own soul. Every time you show up even when you do not feel like it, you are proving to yourself that you are capable of more than you believed. There is a reason why I speak so often in my word about faithfulness in small things. Because small things are never actually small. They are the building blocks of everything significant. In Luke I said through my Son, whoever can be trusted with very little can also be trusted with much. Do you understand what that means? The way you handle your mornings determines whether I can trust you with your destiny. The way you steward your energy determines whether I can trust you with influence. The choices you make when no one is watching become the character you display when everyone is. You cannot compartmentalize discipline. You cannot be faithful in public and careless in private, and expect to walk in the fullness of what I have prepared for you. Your private world determines your public impact. The hour you spend alone with me in the morning is more powerful than the hour you spend on a stage. The discipline you practice in secret becomes the anointing you carry in public. The habits you build in the dark become the strength you need when you step into the light. This is why I care so deeply about what you do when no one else is looking. Not because I am watching to catch you failing, but because I am watching to see if you are ready for more. If you are still with me, I want you to share this video with one person right now. Not your whole friend list. Just one person, someone who is stuck, someone who has been inconsistent, someone who needs to be reminded that their gift is worth fighting for. Send it to them with a message. Tell them you are thinking of them. Tell them you believe in them, because sometimes all someone needs is one person to say, I see your potential. Let me give you something practical now. Because inspiration without instruction leaves you stirred but stuck. If you want to honor the gift I gave you, you must build 3 pillars into your life. The first pillar is routine. You need rhythms that protect your purpose. A time to wake, a time to create, a time to rest, a time to refuel. Without structure, your life will be dictated by whatever demands the loudest attention. And the loudest things are rarely the most important things. Even my son Jesus, when he walked the earth, had rhythms. He withdrew to solitary places to pray to me. He rose early while it was still dark. He had habits of worship and scripture that sustained him when the crowds pressed in and the enemy attacked. If my own son needed discipline and routine, how much more do you? Do not buy the lie that routine kills creativity. Routine creates the space where creativity can flourish. Structure is not the enemy of freedom. It is the framework that makes freedom possible. The second pillar is boundaries. You cannot do everything. You cannot be available to everyone. You cannot say yes to every invitation and still have energy for what I called you to do. Boundaries are not selfish. They are sacred. They are how you guard the gift. They are how you create space for what matters. My son Jesus himself withdrew from the crowds. He said no to good things so he could say yes to the right things. He did not heal every person in every village. He focused on what I, the Father, was doing. And that focus, that holy selectivity, is what allowed him to fulfill his mission. The third pillar is accountability. You were not meant to walk this journey alone. I wrote in Proverbs, as iron sharpens iron, so one person sharpens another. You need people who will ask you the hard questions, people who will call you out when you are slipping, people who will celebrate your wins and challenge your excuses. Isolation is the enemy of discipline. When you try to do this alone, you give yourself permission to compromise. But when you invite others into your process, you create a weight of responsibility that helps you stay the course. Routine, boundaries, accountability. These three pillars will transform your life if you build them, not overnight, but over time, not instantly, but inevitably. Now I want you to do something. Ask yourself an honest question. If I were to evaluate how you spent your time this past week, would it reflect someone who truly believes they were made for purpose? Or would it reflect someone drifting through days on autopilot? If your habits were a mirror, what would they say about your priorities? This is not about guilt. This is about clarity, because you cannot change what you will not confront. Remember when I pointed out the widow who gave 2 small coins? Everyone else gave out of their abundance. She gave out of her poverty, but she gave all she had. I did not measure her gift by its size. I measured it by her sacrifice, by what it cost her. And that is how I measure your discipline, not by comparing you to someone else, not by some external standard of perfection, but by whether you are giving me all you have, whether you are faithful with the hours I have given you today. If you are still reading, drop a comment. Tell me one excuse you are ready to let go of today. What is one lie you have believed about why you cannot be consistent? Name it, expose it. Because when you bring it into the light, it loses its power over you. You have spent so much time asking me for open doors, but have you considered that I may be waiting for you to walk through the one that is already open? The door of today, the door of this hour, the door of small, faithful obedience that does not look impressive, but build something unshakable. I do not need you to do something spectacular. I need you to do something consistent. I do not need you to make a grand gesture. I need you to make a daily choice. Think about this. Every great movement in history began with someone who decided to show up consistently. Every book that changed a generation was written 1 page at a time by someone who sat down day after day. Every business that transformed an industry was built by someone who did the next right thing over and over until momentum formed. Moses spent 40 years in the wilderness before I called him to lead. 40 years tending sheep. 40 years in obscurity. 40 years that felt like waste. But I was not wasting his time. I was developing his character. I was teaching him patience. I was building the endurance he would need to lead a stubborn nation through the desert. The wilderness was not punishment. It was preparation. And when the burning bush moment came, Moses was ready. Not because those 40 years felt significant, but because he had been faithful even when nothing made sense. Here is the secret that most people never learn. Motivation is unreliable. Feelings are fickle. Inspiration comes and goes like the tide. But discipline is solid ground. It is the bridge that carries you when motivation has left. It is the force that turns desire into reality. It is the tool that transforms a dream into a plan, and a plan into a life. Paul understood this when I inspired him to write to the Corinthians. He said, "I discipline my body and keep it under control, lest after preaching to others, I myself should be disqualified." Think about that. Paul, who had seen heaven. Paul, who had written half the New Testament through my inspiration. Paul, who had performed miracles in my name. Even he knew that discipline was not optional. He compared the Christian life to a race that requires training. You do not run a marathon on feelings. You run it on preparation. You run it on the discipline you built in the months before race day. And I do not want that for you. I did not place a gift inside you just to watch you bury it under busyness and distraction. I did not call you to greatness so you could live small. I did not breathe purpose into your lungs so you could waste it on empty hours. You were made for more. You were designed with intention, you were crafted with care. And everything you need to become who I created you to be is already within you. But you must choose to cultivate it. You must choose to protect it. You must choose to build the structure that allows it to flourish. Discipline is how you honor the gift I gave you. It is how you say thank you with your life, instead of just with your lips. It is how you prove that you value what I have entrusted to you. And when you begin to walk in daily, unglamorous faithfulness, something shifts in the spiritual realm. Doors that were closed begin to crack open. Opportunities that seemed impossible begin to appear. Favor that you could not manufacture begins to rest on your efforts. Not because you earned it, but because you positioned yourself to receive it. I see the way you watch others and wonder why things seem to come easily to them, why their gifts seem to flourish while yours feels stuck. But what you do not see is the foundation they built in secret, the years they spent doing what you are being invited to do right now. Building habits, guarding time, staying consistent, choosing discipline when it hurt. They did not start where they are. They started where you are, and the only difference between where they are and where you are is what they did with the hours no one saw. You can begin today. You do not need more time. You do not need perfect conditions. You do not need to feel ready. You simply need to decide. Decide that the gift I gave you is worth protecting. Decide that your purpose is worth fighting for. Decide that your future is worth the discomfort of discipline today. Before we close, let me remind you of something that will anchor you on the days when discipline feels impossible. I am not asking you to do this in your own strength. I am not expecting you to muster up willpower you do not have. I am inviting you to partner with me, to lean on my grace, to draw on my strength, to trust that when you take a step of obedience, I will meet you there with everything you need to take the next one. In Philippians, I inspired Paul to write something that most people misquote. He said, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. But look at the context. He was not talking about superhuman ability. He was talking about contentment in every circumstance, about being faithful whether he had plenty or whether he had nothing, about finding strength not in his own willpower, but in Christ, in me, working through him. That is the secret. You are not doing this alone. Every morning you choose discipline. I am there giving you strength. Every moment you resist distraction, my grace is empowering you. Every time you show up when you do not feel like it, you are not operating in your own power. You are tapping into mine. Subscribe to this channel and turn on notifications. This is not just content. This is a community of believers who refuse to waste their potential, who choose discipline as worship. Join us, and I will see you in the next one. Keep honoring the gift. Keep showing up. Keep choosing what matters. The world is waiting for what only you can give.